Hello, friends, and welcome to Artist Questions. This is the mostly weekly live stream where we look at some of the biggest questions facing contemporary artists today. My name is Dan Curtis. I'm an artist, writer, and arts educator from London in the UK, and I'm head of collector and arts education at the Amazing Exchange Art, who make all this possible. So thank you so much to them. And I just want to start by saying, if you hear some noise outside today, it's because there seems to be some huge roadworks. Just started right now, exactly when we need to stream, which is classic, isn't it? I really want to say before we start today, thank you to everyone who came to the Collector's Art course the week before last. It was so amazing to have so many of you there. The course has been recorded if you missed it, and it is currently on the live section of the YouTube channel, Healthy Artist YouTube channel. But I will be editing the course and actually adding a few extra bits in that I sort of, after finishing it and chatting with a few others who wanted some sort of more info and clarification on things, I will be adding in some extra sections. Not huge amounts, but, little bits to reinforce some of the stuff that we're talking about and hopefully get you more prepared. And that will be available soon on the Healthy Artist YouTube channel, where I'm streaming this from now. And if you don't know what the Healthy Artist is, it's a podcast that I run with myself That's good, isn't it? That is run by myself and Martha Lamont, another amazing artist, where we interview artists from all across the art world about what helps them to keep going when everything seems so tough. And speaking of things seeming so tough and how we keep going, this week we are going to be looking at the joy, the horror, the terror that is social media. Now, it's a big question for artists. And actually, me and Martha did do an episode on social media on the Healthy Artist YouTube, where we sort of deep dived into our own practice and what we do and how we feel about it and the struggles that we have. So highly recommend checking that out on thehealthyartist.com or anywhere that you get your podcast from. We're streaming everywhere. So you can find that social media episode. And yeah, it was really interesting discussion, and I think it just continues to come up as a big difficulty for people. So I've decided to do a bit more thinking about it, and I've added in a few more things here for this Artist Questions today that I hope will be beneficial for you in contextualizing what social media is about and what you think your relationship to it is. You join me in the studio today, where it's sort of the autumn's definitely arrived, the seasons have changed, it's cloudy and you feel that chill in the air, and it's really lovely. And I got my cup of tea, so let's do this. Do artists need social media? So one of the important things to start with is the kind of feeling that there is on social media these days. I think a lot of artists feel that the apps that maybe, say, 2 years ago or something like that, maybe even a year ago, artists might be saying, I feel like I have to use social media. I feel like I don't know how to connect with anyone in any other ways. And the main sort of difficulties are with sort of feeling like I don't like using it, but I kind of have to use it. I'm not really sure how to use it and what makes me authentic on there and stuff like that. And those sorts of questions. But it seems to me that in the last year, the main struggle that people are having with social media is not so much like, how do I use it anymore? Is that it seems to be almost unusable. in the fact that we come to social media and maybe we did a post before and it felt uncomfortable and we weren't sure about doing it or something like that, but at least it had some sort of reach. It would connect with people, and it would connect with the amount of followers that we had. Even our story posts, when we got into that, could get maybe thousands of views or something like that. And now it seems to be the opposite. When you post something you might have worked so hard on, it feels like no one's seeing it at all. It's like the same few accounts that you might see, or sort of strange adverts, or what seems to be sort of fake accounts or bot accounts keep coming up and keep DMing you, and it doesn't seem like it was before. And that's not just something that is anecdotal or something that is made up in our heads. That is very much the case and is very much happening. In fact, there's a great essay by the writer and artist and musician Ben Jordan, talking as a video essay. You can watch it on YouTube. About the statistics around bots in things like Twitter, and that the statistics these days are saying that on Twitter, out of the billions of users, 1 in 3 accounts on Twitter now is a bot account. And he goes in like a deep dive into this, and he has got footage of like some of these bot farming places in countries like Russia, in very poor areas where people are kind of being forced into working in these big offices where they have to just type, program, 18 hours a day to pretending to be American, or, using programming ChatGPT bots to influence the way that we think and argue with people. And that leads to kind of the dead internet theory, which has been around for some time, but is sort of growing in truth now. What sort of began as a I guess, a kind of myth, a social media myth, is now developing into truth, in that, more than half the internet, it seems now, is actually just bots talking to each other. And it seems to be that whenever we're trying to make that genuine connection or use social media for what we feel we're supposed to use it for as artists, we can barely even do that. That's because of something that I want to share with you that I think is really, really important. And it's a suggested idea by the writer Cory Doctorow, which is in his coming book, which is coming out in a few weeks. And that's the concept of enshittification. The idea that social media, particularly things like Instagram, which a lot of artists find themselves using or feeling they have to use, are getting worse, not by accident or not through our imagination, but are getting worse by design. And that's actually part of the pattern of how the app extracts money and value from its users. Let me break it down a little bit more. So Cory Doctorow's thesis runs as this: that enshittification has 3 predictable stages that all apps and products go through in a capitalist framework. Enshittification works like this. First off, let's say, social media app like Instagram is great for users. It's this brand new thing that serves high value and superior experience to users, and it offers amazing deals, free tools, smooth experience, attracts loads of people, and has all that kind of superior experience transferred to their users to gain a huge audience, a huge following. That's stage 1. That's the time when we get sort of bought into something and think that it's brilliant. Stage 2 is when once the users are locked in, it changes to not becoming good for the audience anymore. It becomes being good for the shareholders. So once users are locked in, the platform starts shifting its value towards advertisers, sellers, investors, anyone with a stake in the company's wealth. And then the platforms begin to like exploit their existing user base to attract business customers, essentially, making money from the user base that it captured in stage one. Then stage three, the final stage of enshittification, is the extreme extraction of value. So finally, it squeezes both users and businesses to extract maximum profit. The platform abuses both those people now, leaving a degraded service for everyone except the platform's owners, executives, and shareholders. The experience becomes so bad that everyone leaves, and eventually the platform completely collapses or stagnates. And we can see that with plenty of platforms out there like Twitter or X, I say now, and the way that Instagram is going. So this is the idea of enshittification, that it's not sort of an accident that apps are like struggling to keep up and things have changed. And why is it that they're so much harder to use, or they're forcing you to use them in a certain way, and all the things that they gave you before are now not there anymore? It's actually the business model. It's the model to extract the most value. And it happens because platforms rely on monopoly power. Of course, there can be, kind of an ethical monopolizing of an area. You can be the best in your area, or try and like connect with other people and build, something that gives value to people, but while being kind of monopolizing. But in this sense, we're talking about sort of value extractive capitalism, and the monopoly power, once they have their captive audience, and that in this case we're talking about artists, using Instagram, they can slowly worsen the deal for everyone to serve short-term profit or shareholder demand rather than the user. And so therefore, from this extractive capitalist model, enshittification is the design of how it works, and eventually it collapses, and all the investors, once they are extremely wealthy, move on to the next model and just do the whole process again. So the big takeaway from this is that Cory Doctorow's thesis is that enshittification isn't an accident. It's built into the logic of these platforms and how they work and how platform capitalism works. It's what happens when growth and profit are prioritized entirely over community, creativity, trust, connection. Everything that the app promised to offer in the first place gets flipped over. So then when that comes back to artists, we need to understand enshittification then in the context of the attention economy. Social media for artists is what it might have been before, was kind of a way to connect, a way to develop your practice, find other people, and it can still be that. But so much now is about attention. How do we get people to look at our stuff rather than actually how do we connect with people? Because, in the end, the algorithm rewards engagement, not depth, which means things like outrage, trends, and noise right at the top as part of this enshittification process. For artists, then, that creates a trap. You're pressured then into feeling that you need to make content, not art. Or success is tied to your visibility, not your quality, or your algorithmic impact. And your creative energy as an artist then gets redirected toward feeding the algorithm in this process of enshittification, instead of developing your practice or experimentation or trial of strange things or following the logical process of your work. You end up in this, how do I make something that fits this platform, which is actively collapsing around me? Connected to this is this great quote from Jamie Derringer, the artist and writer. She was saying on her brilliant site, blog, where she writes about sort of art and tech, we've blurred the lines between what is genuine in these sort of spaces and what is transactional, leaving us with no digital third space. I kind of feel like that's the crux of it for so many artists, is that they're desperate for that connection, that authenticity in social media, but it's so hard now with enshittification and this abstractive capitalist model of things like Instagram to figure out what is the difference between connecting with someone and extracting from someone from actually building a relationship with someone or building a transaction with someone that will hopefully get you more views in what seems like this endless fight of lag and minimal opportunities for attention. Connected to this is the book Digital Minimalism, which we go into in some depth on our social media episode on the Healthy Artist podcast. So highly recommend listening to that after this if this is of interest to you. But as a kind of skim over some of the most important ideas, Cal Newport is saying that the kind of apologists for social media and tech, and this is where a lot of us find ourselves as artists as well, is like, well, it does connect us. I found other galleries and, I found ways to share my work easily and stuff like that. And all the things that, it promised us in the first place, we're saying that's why we signed up, because we wanted to do that. But the issue is it's through the process of enshittification, the apps have gone, this is what Cal Newport is saying, encroached in our lives so much that they've gone way beyond those original use cases for which we signed up for, and instead into colonizing every part of our entire life, to feeling that everything we do connects to Instagram or social media. And then therefore, I feel for artists, that starts to infect your interior world. You start to think, well, should I make this painting this way up because it will look better on a phone than this way, right? Or, the artist ADHD was writing about this the other day, saying, our songs meant to be 3 minutes long, our films meant to be an hour and a half because they fit into this category of media or something like that. Are all stories supposed to be told in 10, 45-minute episodes? There's so many of these kind of restrictive things that start to infect the kind of interior creative world, our kind of artistic life, that we don't even realize. And it's kind of colonized every aspect of who we are. You've also got to remember that when it comes to social media, even the idea that it's free, that it's, something that is given to us, is offered to us, and, is a kind of, again, at the start of the process of enshittification, that idea that it was all this value was given for free, to users before it starts to extract the value from us. And what we've got to remember is, yes, it's free, or it's the cost of a phone and internet connection. But if something is free, that means that then we are the product. And in that sense, it isn't free, because if it's colonizing every aspect of who we are as artists, then it means that the thing that we pay for is with our attention, and actually with then our mental well-being as well. If we become so sucked into what we're looking at and so kind of convinced that we have to, manifest our artwork to fit into this very narrow, collapsing product, and the product being the product of Instagram. Of course, as well, we need to understand as artists that these things can disappear at a moment's notice. Some of you who have been following me for a while might remember the fact that my Twitter account, or X account, which I'd spent many years kind of working and building up to around 10,000 followers, where I was sharing, my digital work with a lot of collectors and artists there. I suddenly went to log in one day and it was gone, and I never got it back. And I very quickly realized, within that few days, like, wow, okay, I'm not owed anything by these platforms, and everything can just disappear like that in a moment. There's so little control that we can have, and having to start something over, like a huge social media account again, is the process of enshittification. There is no way to connect with someone at X now to reinstate your account. Once it's gone, that's it, and I'm seeing the stat for so many artists, that same story. Yes. So that's hopefully that doesn't sound all too heavy, but what I want to do is contextualize and say there's a lot of cons with using social media and maybe some things that we hadn't thought about, especially this idea of enshittification, that the feeling that things are getting worse is not something that we're imagining, that it is by design. So then what's the other side? What are the pros of social media then? If those are the difficulties, are there any pros, left? From what I've said there, it sounds like there's nothing at all. But let's consider some of them. And then what I want us to do is consider a reframing of social media and how we might come to it with an enhanced view where we put, the value back on connection as the center. The pros of social media. Of course, there's amazing things like connecting to people with no middleman, being able to connect with collectors and other artists without needing to give money, without needing to share, percentage of your sales and things like that is absolutely amazing. And I can attest to the brilliant things that have come out of my own time with social media. So many of the shows that I've been involved in the last few years have come through social media for me connecting with other artists. I have been able to use it to, organize studio visits, meet with gallerists, meet with other artists that I really respect that I might not be able to have, got in contact with in any other way. And we can see, artists' entire portfolios now without having to, go to a gallery at all, which is amazing. And this idea that we kind of see behind the scenes with social media, I think that's a really powerful part of it, that artists are very much willing to share their process depending on the artist, depending on what type of social media they have. It's amazing to be able to see maybe something of how things work, and that might have been a bit more gate kept and hidden. Now there's a way of like engaging with that, which is fantastic. And so then I guess but then the problem still stands as Cal Newport is saying, that the original reasons that we connected with social media for are in some sense still there, but actually it's gone way beyond that capacity. And so the difficulty is, how do we re-find the things that we wanted social media to do for us if there's an active process of enshittification going on and the apps are literally falling apart by design and extracting as much value from us as possible while we scrabble for what seems like absolute minute fragments of attention for ourselves. So I think the reframing is as thus. Yes, social media. Artists don't need social media. It's the other way around. Social media companies need us. Otherwise they wouldn't function at all. There would be no value to extract as the shareholder. So what we then need to do is kind of retake control of our relationship with social media and create for ourselves a social media that serves artists, not shareholders. And by that, I don't mean building yourself a whole new social media platform. Many have tried to do that and struggled to succeed because of the very nature of enshittification that which is, foundationalized by monopoly capitalism, by literally controlling everything. It's it's impossible to make a rival to Instagram, or something like that these days, without some huge amount of financial backing. And again, that's the problem with this kind of monopolizing. So in terms of then creating a social media that serves you as the artists and not shareholders, the absolute key to that then is creating community. Now, what I mean by that is not algorithmic fame, not likes on a post, not thousands and hundreds of thousands of followers. Okay, that is not creating community. Okay, and let me give you an example. A friend of mine, very close friend, amazing artist, has, in the recent years gone a bit, let's say, viral for some of the videos that they're putting out of their drawing process. and has somewhere in the region now of 100,000 followers. Yet there is no sales coming from those 100,000 followers. They're not getting bookings for the things they want to do. They can't sell a drawing for £50, you know. In the end, the numbers are just the numbers. They're just a set of numbers on a screen. Nothing's changed really in terms of their output as an artist and in terms of their connection with other people. And in fact, it's kind of the opposite. I remember hearing a famous YouTuber saying that, you know, there's a change that happens once you become viral and get a certain amount of followers, that people stop talking to you and start talking about you. And I've seen that under my friend's posts, that it changed from an active community around his work and artists getting excited about it to just like a torrent of hate and people talking about him in the third person, rather as if he didn't post it himself. And so creating community then doesn't mean creating a kind of set of rules that are going to make us algorithmically famous, but it doesn't mean the opposite either. It doesn't mean what some people, I think, tend to do, and a lot of artists tend to feel, is like, well, then reject the whole thing. You know, dump all social media, dump all digital AI, all this stuff's bullshit nonsense, dump the whole lot. And we kind of go like anti-digital, or as if sort of a return to like craft or the handmade is like the most authentic thing, which all of itself has its own problems. Maybe we'll do an episode on that as well. But I'm not saying that. I'm saying we're creating community means being intentional with our relationship to social media, not trying to shape our art to be content and serve a platform that's falling apart and serve shareholders. Instead, being intentional and using it to create community in the way that we can. So to emphasize that further, Cal Newport sort of describes again in the idea of that social media and these apps colonize every aspect of our lives. And he says that because that is occurring, it's not that we need another fix like a download to stop us being on Instagram so much, or make a 5-step plan or something like that, because it never lasts. But instead, we need a kind of bottom-up re-establishment of our relationship to technology and social media that is instead based on our values, not based on what we think we're supposed to do or how we're supposed to become successful or how we're supposed to get likes, shares, follows, or attention of some kind. So then what might, making a kind of bottom-up re-establishment of our connection with social media based on our values look like? Well, I think it comes down to a few things. Firstly is not worrying about numbers, likes, shares, followers, anything like that. And using social media for what it can be powerful for is that like immediate connection with people. I've started doing as most as I can every Monday, a big share on my Instagram stories, which I call Monday Motivation. And essentially it's all the art that I've looked at that week. And I have a little folder. So instead of just, it's dreaming past, doom scrolling, which is exactly what can happen, with the way that it's designed. And that's it working in its full capacity. I start saving my favorite works into a little folder in Instagram, so you can do that. And then every Monday I share all the work that I've most enjoyed that week that's got me so excited. And I tag every artist in it. That's been an amazing community builder for me. I've then been able to connect further, go to shows, meet artists, stuff like that, just from the simple act of sharing one image of their work. And not because it gives me some sort of powerful gain or transaction. Again, that's the battle, like Jamie Derringer was saying, between what's authentic and what's transactional. To me, that's authentic is like, I'm really fucking vibing with this work this week, and hopefully you do as well. And then I make a command at the end of it on Monday. I say, now follow all these artists and message them and like them and stuff like that. don't scroll past, and those kind of things. So that's maybe the beginning of thinking about it in that sense. I think it's also using social media, again, to forget about the numbers and just reach out to people. Tell them that you like their work. Tell them that you got inspired by something that they did, and, start those conversations. That's the most amazing thing, not seeing how many likes you can get on the post, but it leading to nothing and it leading to just being in the ether. But start actually trying to connect with people further. Put in your stories what kind of people you're looking to engage with. Ask for feedback on things, that kind of stuff. Yeah, use it for that, and then be intentional with it. Give yourself a certain amount of time where you know what you're going to do on social media and you know what you're coming to it for. It's going to help you so much. When it comes to the use of social media as well, what type of way you might want to use social media. There's a really great book called by Delphian Gallery that's called it's about early career artists, and there's a good bit on social media in there. And I talked about that at length in my course, The Artist's Toolkit, where I talk about social media as part of your toolkit. That course is now online on the Healthy Artist YouTube channel for free, so you can go and watch that anytime. And it's split into it's part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is where we talk about a toolkit, and I talk about building your own social media narrative there, and then how to apply it in part 2. So go and check that out. But sort of a light touch on that is the idea that there's different ways that you can set up how your social media looks to be more connected with who you are as an artist, not serving the algorithm. Beyond that is what I keep advocating to artists at the moment over and over and over, is that we must really focus away from social media when it comes to being our only way that we connect with people, and absolutely set yourself up a newsletter as an artist. A newsletter and emails are evergreen. Emails are going to be around forever, it's not, emails aren't going through that same process of enshittification as apps are, that are these extractive things. And as I said, when I lost my Twitter account, I also lost connection with so many people, and some I've never been able to re-find because I didn't have everyone in another place at the time, and I didn't have everyone on my newsletter. So creating a newsletter, intentionally posting about that, asking people if they can be added onto it is so helpful, because also a newsletter is obviously on an email or on a page like a Substack. These spaces like email and Substack are designed to be connected with slowly, whereas social media is designed for the attention economy. It's connected with at speed, and it's the loudest, noisiest, most intense things, most stupid things that rise to the top, And then, of course, we're seeing more and more, like with TikTok, and like I said, with these botted accounts, that actually a lot of it isn't even, what's the most attention rises to the top. It's what the people within the app are programming to get rising to the top, because they have a reason for it to be at the top. So newsletters are so important. Here's my site here, danielcurtis.co.uk, and there I just have contact, and then on the contact page I just have the simple form newsletter. Now, if you're wanting to figure out what to put in your newsletter and how to make that the best it can be, again, you can check out the Artist Toolkit course, but also I did an artist questions on creating a newsletter that works, and it's not re-uploaded yet, but I will post that up soon, so that will be on the Healthy Artist YouTube channel for you to see at some point very soon. And then beyond the idea of a newsletter, and thinking again about re-establishing connection with people. And then, because a question we might have is, this sounds all very well and good, Dan, about like doing stuff differently and not being, connected, not being using social media as much and all that. But how the hell else am I going to connect with people, right? It feels like it's the only way we can do it, and there's a brilliant video, which I've sent to a number of people now, by amazing YouTube channel called The Calm Creative. And she, let me just bring it up here. The Calm Creative, her name's Louise Steigel. She does this amazing video walking you through my calm, social, free marketing strategy as an artist. And I think it will maybe suit artists that are maybe like selling products more. So like for her, it's like drawings and, courses and things like that. But what's so amazing about it is like she left social media entirely a number of years ago, and it has only benefited her practice. It's actually meant that her connection has grown and that her connection with her audience has become more thorough, more real, rather than just putting a post out and hoping that someone somewhere receives it based on a kind of app that's falling apart, as I say. When you've got a newsletter with an intentional set of followers who are interested in what you're doing, when you send stuff to them, they then read it, they engage with it because they're following you, not in a transactional way or just it's mixed in with 10,000 other things that they follow. It's an email that comes to them and they're like, oh yes, this is that person that I enjoy reading and hearing from and have followed. A newsletter is something that you sign up to specifically. It's not like a follow on Instagram, which can be done very passively. It's a very specific thing. Highly recommend you all go and watch that video as soon as possible. And I think what's so great about that video, which has helped me and definitely helped us with the Healthy Artist podcast, is there's this section towards the end of which she has this little diagram here, and it's showing that what's so great about not being in social media and connecting through newsletters and other things is that what you then find is, as artists, you can begin to share your audiences with one another, and then you grow together in community. So if you run a cool newsletter and as part of your newsletter you interviewed another artist or did a visit to their studio and wrote about it and said you can sign up to their newsletter here and vice versa, that's how you start to intentionally build community. If you appear on a Brilliant Artist podcast or something like that, that's their audience and your audience connecting with each other. And all this stuff can be posted to social media, which is great, but it's much more intentional rather than just firing off things we're hoping will go viral, or making videos that we don't want to make that aren't connected to our practice, or making content over actually focusing on the experimentation of our work and making the weirdest shit that we want to make. Not trying to fit stuff into like a palatable algorithm. So we've got to think about, who are the artists and community that we want to connect to are, and where are their audiences, and how can we share them with each other? Because that is really the only way. Community, like honest artist community, is the only thing that's going to beat the dead looming hand of capitalism and shitification in the end. Because like I said, my friend, he's got so many followers and it felt like it was leading to nothing. Instead, the things that have, made a change in his life are times when it's one conversation with one person at an opening, or through an intentional sharing of community. That's when things come. And to come back to Jamie Derringer, who we quoted earlier, she said in a recent article, in that article I quoted earlier about social media, that when she started her previous blog, which was called Design Milk, which has now become one of the most sort of famous design blogs in the world, she was asked over and over what other design blogs she read. And she said, in the end, she stopped reading design blogs because she didn't want them to influence what she was doing and constantly consuming things and constantly scrolling content. And then she says, well, what happened then to my work after I did that? It actually got better. I gave up on chasing others, listened to my intuition, started doing what was best for me. And I didn't realize it at the time that I actually needed to apply that to my entire life, tuning stuff out, lessening my scrolling. And it's been the best thing that I've done for myself. And I think it's true. Once we stop the noise of social media colonizing our lives and colonizing our thought process, like Cal Newport says, we can come back to play, experimentation, doing weird shit, and actually engaging with people who are really interested in what we're doing. So I hope that's been of use to you today, friends. Like I say, if you're interested in more about this topic, go and check out the social media episode on the Healthy Artist podcast. It streams everywhere you get your podcasts. And we go more of a deep dive into Cal Newport's book. And I think we are going to do another social media episode soon on the Healthy Artist because it just seems so important. But hopefully some of this new research around enshittification and some of these processes have helped you to reframe the idea of what social media might be for you, and then thinking about how can I approach this stuff intentionally with the idea of creating community, not virality, and creating actual connection with people regardless of how many likes my post gets. Because in the end, if a post gets 1,000 likes, what does it mean? It can actually just mean nothing. It just means more money for the shareholders because more time is spent on the app. Yeah. So I want you to come back to your intentional usage of social media and tech. And I want you, as Cal Newport said, to rethink your relationship from the bottom up of creating a full system of connection with tech that is based on your values, not based on the draw of the colonization of your mind and what you think you're supposed to do. Yeah. And I really want you to all consider about newsletters and evergreen ways of connecting with people through tech. And then overall, I want you to be getting back out there into the world and going to shows and connecting with people and making stuff happen, and not spending your time in compare and despair cycles, doom scrolling every day, which is not like a fault of you that you're doing that on the app. That's how the app is designed to work. Yeah, it's designed to keep things moving, and we don't need to do that. As soon as we pull our attention into another area, we can come back to our work with a lot more authenticity. Well, I hope that's been helpful to you today, friends. I've really enjoyed sharing some of this new stuff with you. And like I say, I will keep dropping sort of new ideas around this. And if there's, anything you want more clarification on, or you would like to hear an episode about on Artist Questions, just let me know. And the best way to keep up to date with me and everything I'm doing is to sign up for my newsletter, just like I've been saying. So go to danielcurtis.co.uk and contact, and you can just drop your email in there. I send out one newsletter every month with all sorts of stuff like this, plus courses that I'm doing, artwork that I'm making, people that I'm connecting with. And I'd love you to be part of that community as well. So head over to danielcurtis.co.uk and drop your email in, and you'll be on it. And have a lovely rest of the day, my friends, and rest of the week. And I hope to connect with you somewhere in this crazy digital life or in the real world very soon. Love you lots, friends. Bye-bye.